This is a Motorola Spectra transceiver, and this was Motorola's early 90s kind of service radio for police and fire and that. It's commercial, and you can pick these up pretty cheap now. I paid $20 for this at the ham swap meet, and I'm going to reprogram it and use it on 2 meters as my 2 meter radio. It's very, very well built, and that right there is always a nice added bonus. So I've been reading a lot about these, and there's a lot to learn because they're not intuitive and easy to program in that like a regular, Yaesu or Kenwood ICOM type ham radio. They take 12 volts here for the power amp, and then there's an ignition sense. This is a DB15 right here, and that's the speaker output and the ignition sense there. So if you just put power onto here, it's not going to work. You also have to feed 12 volts into one of these pins, and your speaker output's here. And there's also one accessory. If you don't have it, you have to jump 2 pins together here, or else the radio will be in emergency mode. It's a mini UHF output. This radio actually works. It's whoever programmed it last had a bunch of LAPD tactical frequencies, and also the weather, the 162 megahertz weather NOAA frequencies. These have one kind of major problem, which is capacitors, and the capacitors, the electrolytics in these, the failure mode is they leak, and when they leak, it eats up the board, and this one's got some pretty severe leakage. So I'm going to recap this. Now, you can buy cap kits for this online, which offer tantalums for the 10UF, and then surface mount for the bigger ones. These small ones are all 10 at 16, and they offer tantalums for these, and that kind of interests me because these yellow ones are tantalums. So why did Motorola go with electrolytics here instead of tantalums, unless they were specified by the engineers? So it appears there's 4 up here. There's some on the bottom, and there's some in the control head, and there's some in the power amp. You take the bottom off, and this is what you see, and then I got these really nice shields everywhere. You can see there's a bunch of them here, and you can see where it's been leaking, this kind of black thing here where the solder mask is just scraping off. That's the leakage. That's the acid from inside the capacitor. So basically all of these have to be removed, and this has to be cleaned up, and then these have to be replaced. Really nicely made kind of RF shields. There are sellers on eBay offering kits that have all the right capacitors in it. I don't quite have the patience to order it and wait for that. So I just went down to my local electronics store and grabbed a bunch of stuff. I got some tantalum TinUF tantalum teardrops there, which I might use. I'm still a little skeptical about changing electrolytics for tantalums when that's not what Motorola specified. If they had done that, these radios wouldn't have a problem probably. These little black ones here are tantalums, these little square ones. And then I got a bunch of surface mount electrolytics. These things are actually cheap. They're really cheap. So yeah, let's take a look here first. So we got the negative of this one here, negative of that one there, negative of that one there, and the negative of that one there. Alright, so it appears that the best way to remove these is just to very gently pull them off. I'll tell you this, when you try and unsolder them, the odor is fantastic that comes out of them from the oil squirting out. So then what I'll do is I'll remove this, and then I can get my soldering iron in there and get them off. Here's what it looks like all cleaned up. I pulled the capacitors off, and I used my solder sucker and soldering iron to clean up the legs, clean up the pads there. And then I used a acid brush and some alcohol, and I just kept scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing until I was sure I got all that acid off there. You need to get the acid off there because it'll continue to eat these things up. So I basically got 4 10 microfarads here, one at 50 volts and the other one's at 16 volts. I don't own the equipment to reinstall the surface mount parts. At least I don't think I can get it with my soldering equipment. So I'll probably have to install the equipment with the through hole stuff. This is not going to be in a high vibration environment. It'll probably just be on my desk in the house, hooked to an antenna on the roof. So I'm not worried about this possibility of the parts vibrating loose. I've decided to install the teardrops for the tins at 16, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of those for the 10 at 50. And the way I'm doing is I'm cutting them and bending the leads like that, and then soldering them on. Alright, there's what it looks like recapped. Got to double check the polarity because these little teardrop capacitors are like little firecrackers if you get them in backwards. This board's going to be a little bit more difficult because I'm a little bit more sketched out about doing this because of how chewed up the board is. I don't want to pull the pads off. Come on, baby, work with me. It's a good thing I was, well, this side over here is the positive, the angled side's the positive. You got to make sure, because Motorola did not mark on the board which way it went to. Come on. There. Oh wow, look at that. It just pulled the It just popped right off. The solder was so weakened. So then what you want to do is kind of pretty crusty. This thing worked. Alright, this board is done. I'm taking a lot of time and scraping all the acid solder mask off and cleaning it very well. There's two more to do here in the head, right there and there, and then there's one more in the power amp. And you can see all the spooge here that's leaked out of this one. These up here actually look okay. I don't see anything. All done. This one took quite a bit of cleanup to get it to look good enough. These two here on the control head were fine. There was absolutely no leakage at all from them. Still go ahead and change them. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass. You have to take these screws out here and then take this plastic piece, or actually then the whole board will separate from the head. Then this thing has a little plastic clip that you push back, and then the plastic hinges up off the board and you can access the caps. Now to put it back together and see if it works. Alright, let's give it a try. 12 volts. I haven't put it back together yet because in case there's any moisture left over from that alcohol. So I just stuck a piece of solder in here for an antenna. I'm not gonna key it down. I don't even have the mic attached. Here we go. Kill this light.
With a slight chance of rain or snow showers. Highs from the upper 40s to mid-50s at low elevations to the upper 30s to mid-40s at high elevations. The extended forecast for the Antelope Valley, Tuesday night and Wednesday, mostly clear.
Before I could just barely get this one. Yeah, it's still there.
60%. Friday night, mostly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers. Lows around 40. Saturday, mostly cloudy with a 20% chance of showers.
It works great. The volume is loud. Before, all the way up, the volume wide open, it wasn't really very loud at all. It's like 5 times louder. It doesn't make all kinds of popping noises when you change the channel. It's working good. So I'm going to put it back together, let it dry out for a couple hours just to verify, put it back together, and then I'll either attach the programming video onto this one or make a separate video. Here's a programming box, which is about $20-something, and the specific cable. They call this a rib box, and then the specific cable for the Spectra, and I've got it running on a little fully charged lead acid battery there. I've got an old beat up crappy, I think this is like a Pentium 1 laptop with Windows 98, and the Spectra, Motorola Spectra software is installed on the C drive. So the first thing I'm going to do is boot this thing into Windows 98 and then restart it in DOS and try and remember the DOS prompts, because this has been a lot of years. And this thing has seen better days. So shut down, restart in MS-DOS. Turn the radio on here. Okay, now I gotta try and remember the command to change the directory. CD something, let me figure that out. Okay, so by hitting enter, this should get us going. I guess what I should do is probably turn the box on. Okay, so enter. Get save program code plug data file to print code plug. So let's see what F3 does. F3. Okay, read data from radio. Okay. Alright, I got it. What I did was I went in here to PC configuration. Let me see, how do I go back again? So the first time I just went straight to F3, and this time I went to F9, and I changed the COM port. The COM port was on, let's see, F9 screen color configuration. Is that really important? And then I went to F3, and then I had to change I changed these to C because I didn't have the folders created, and then I had to change this to COM1, and you have to use the tab and the arrows to change it. So let's try it again. Okay, so let's try this again. Read data from radio code plug. Let's try this again, F2. Well, we just don't want to do anything to screw this up. Well, this is reading or writing. Just don't breathe. Just don't. Power doesn't go out. If something goes wrong, it'll brick the radio. Alright, so here's looking at what was in it. And most of these don't exist anymore. I mean, LAPD is all digital now, so this was obviously somebody's using it as a scanner instead of a radio. So I'm going to go through here and put some ham frequencies in. Not real intuitive how to use this thing, that's for sure. Alright, I made some changes and I saved it, and now I'm loading it back into the radio. We'll see if it takes it.
Yeah. Some gaps are down.
Oh yeah, it took it, 520.
Okay.
So let's see.
Hook up an antenna. Shall we go to town? Dude, it's pretty run.
Alright, the frequency programming part was successful, but now I'm just working on kind of programming the control head. There's a lot of options here, so you can change, for instance, all this stuff. I'm making a power cable for this, and it's not real complicated. I'm going to use this as a speaker. It's just a speaker out of a TV. Looking at it from the top, because the wide side plugs into the top. This pin here is jumpered over to this pin. This is left blank. These are left blank. This is power. This is ignition positive to turn the radio off when you leave the car. These two are speakers, and then again this one is jumped back to this one. It'll work if you don't jump these two together, but it will give you a display, an error, emergency error or something like that. And all the ones on the bottom are left unpopulated.